come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. Where's the volume where I need it? Can you hear me, son? Can you hear me? You got to belly up to the bar. Why? Because we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Biff is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted. As you can see, it's not yet gone Ridley Scott on me. It's on my left, your right. What do you mean your right? Well, you know you can listen to the show on shrmedia.com, or you can watch it on the SHR Media Facebook page. Right now, it's going. Or you can watch on the SHR Media YouTube channel. Both are going in progress right now. We don't water our... Whoa, just overmodulated that thing. Okay. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, don't leave surprises, jiggle the handle, and tip your bartender, tip your waitress, tip anybody you damn well want to. All right, tonight we've got a very special show. Coming up at 8:15, we've got Dan Herron coming in. He has kind of an interesting tale to tell. He's a former law enforcement officer and currently owns his own private investigatory group in Birmingham, Alabama, of all places. Highly recommended if you happen to need a private investigator for whatever reason. Well, what kind of reasons would that be, BZ? Well, funny you should ask. I'm going to ask him about some of those reasons. So we're going to chat with him, and we'll go up to the top of the hour, which at that point will be 9 o'clock Pacific and midnight on the far right coast, and 1776 and 329.7237 seconds in Bolivia. So welcome. Good to see you here. I've been away for a while. Last week was the week from hell. And that's another reason that, let's turn this up a little bit also. That's another reason that the Sackheads were not here last night. It's one of those weeks where after it happens, I can kind of go back a little bit in retrospect and go, yeah, it was almost amusing. No, it wasn't amusing at all. Just a lot of lovely little problems that have popped up in recent times, and they happen to have dovetailed a little bit with Sackheads as well. So, we're back. In the meantime, I would be remiss if I did not say, like my mother always said, never eat anything bigger than your head. Okay, yes, Mom, got it. She also said, be kind and be cognizant whenever and wherever you are. So I want to point out to the folks in chat, hello to Jersey Joe, whose show was just before mine. Thank you, Jersey Joe. Hello to Mike. By the way, Mike, this gentleman, Dan Herron, is kind of in your neighborhood a little bit. He's not that terribly far away. Hello to Traveling Cynic, the cynic who travels. Welcome to you, and thank you for traveling to the show. We have Carrie Baxter Donovan, Mary Brockman. Okay, stop just for a second, Mary. I'd like you to go quick like a bunny to BZ's Twitter feed, okay? Excuse me. That's at BZEP, B-Z-E-P. And there you'll see a photograph that I placed presently just for you. Thought you should see it. And hello to one viewer, count 'em, one viewer, who is masked, but the policy in the saloon is we don't unmask people at all, do we? No, we don't, for obvious and salient reasons. That said, it's been raining a little bit here in California. It's been snowing. That's, I guess, called global warming. It's been very cold in Sacramento, California, where I broadcast behind enemy lines in occupied California, because, as I've said before, we are 2 miles, for God's sake, from the Bill Mill, the locus of evil of all that's on the left coast is 2 miles away from me. So, I keep asking for blessings and prayers and whatnot, because just being that close is enough to, it's a good thing I'm not a paranormal sensitive, because all the demons who reside at the state capitol, I'd be feeling them 24/7. So thank goodness I'm not clairvoyant or a medium or anything like that. Okay, that I can't not go here. I'm not a medium. I'm a triple X. Thank you very much. And no, I don't mean the movie either, as I think you can already grok that concept. Hey, I was going to start out with some other things, but you know what? Let's start out with this, because there are some good stuff, some good things to talk about. So I'd like to do this sort of as a continuing trend to start the show out with these.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
So here's a happy story, and this is from CBSNews.com. You may have even seen it on the TV. It was a remarkable thing that occurred. Georgia firefighter caught on video catching child from apartment blaze. Absolutely amazing. There's the fire guy. It's at least, it's a story. So that's at least 10 feet down where that child landed into the arms of that firefighter. So it was the dramatic scene of a Georgia firefighter catching a child dropped from an apartment fire, and it was captured on another firefighter's helmet cam. So just like cops wear uniform cams, then obviously firefighters, and that's kind of interesting because I wasn't aware of that, but firefighters now wear helmet cams. In the video, third-generation firefighter Captain Scott Stroop catches the young child dropped by a parent who was climbing down a ladder from a third-floor balcony. Stroop then carries the wailing child away from the burning building, collapsing onto his knees. And it's a pretty dramatic video if you want to go see it. The second thing that also is a happy story, and the funny thing is Jersey Joe had just touched upon this a bit on his show, but there are some serious things amiss in the DNC, the Democrat National Committee. And if I were to sit here and tell you that perhaps the DNC was coming just a little bit unstuck, was being just a bit schizo, would you believe me? You might want to. This is from Politico. DNC overhaul struggles as Sanders-Clinton rivalries persist. Gosh, I wonder why that would be. 1 year into Tom Perez's project to save the DNC from complete collapse, officials are beginning to dig out of the hole left by Debbie Wasserman Schultz's mismanagement. Mismanagement. Interesting turn of phrase. Barack Obama's indifference. Oh, Barack Obama is indifferent to the Democrat Party? Wait, I have something new. And this is what I say to that response. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. They're trying to bring their factions together. And of course, the issue about the Russian hacking and the bitter rivalry between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, capped by accusations of election rigging. But wait, the Democrats wouldn't do anything like that, would they? But going into a midterm election that should be the Democrats to lose, the DNC is still struggling to bring its factions together and assert itself. Throw into the mix powerful super PACs and much better funded party committees focused on Congress and governors and more independent voters than anywhere than ever. And many wonder whether the DNC has a place anywhere at all. Now, Politico, as we well know, is not right-wing. It's moderate to left-leaning. And for the Politico to say something like that is a rather awakening statement. I knew it was a turnaround job when I ran, but I undeniably underestimated the depth of the turnaround job. We had to rebuild almost every facet of the organization, and equally importantly, we had to rebuild trust. Do you think? They lost trust. But it's hard to overstate the task that lays in front of them. The massive amount of trust that has to be regained from screwing the pooch over all of last year and most of 2016. The DNC has become frustrated Democrats' favorite piñata, so to speak, and a symbol of everything that went wrong in 2016. Sanders-Clinton hostilities have taken on a new form. The tension is now over whether Sanders should hand over his massive voter list to the committee. To even think that somebody as a registered Democrat is hesitant to turn over his huge voter list, and you know it must have been massive, because except for Hillary Clinton, it's not entirely impossible that Bernie Sanders could have run, and he knew how to run a campaign. And funny thing is, a lot of the people that were on his voter list are younger, millennials, and people that these days are moving towards socialism, communism, literally communism. So I find that kind of interesting. He won't turn over the voter list, as Perez has asked, and whether the committee has gone far enough to overhaul internal rules that Sanders' forces are convinced rigged the nomination for Clinton. Well, fucking duh. Facts and evidence. Neither side is satisfied, and words like crazy and still doesn't get it, and in one case, Judas, are tossed around to describe people in the opposite camp. So now you know. That's exactly why I consider that to be a happy story. For obvious reasons. Here's another happy story. This just came out. Your tax dollars come out of your bank account, and you either write a check or it just comes out of your paycheck anyway. Plus, you may have to write a check to D.C. for all the lovely little goodies that the government deigns to drop back onto you. Okay, tell you what. Here's my first guest. And let's see. I believe that is, in fact, our first guest. But before we start talking to Dan, I have to tell you, first, let's get everything in place here, because I can't have my Diet Pepsi in the way of trying to run some stuff. Anyway, like I said, we're going to have a good show tonight. We're going to have Dan Heron on until the top of the hour, the magic witching hour at midnight. And then we're going to have Carrie Baxter Donovan. But as I want to say, now, I think, is the time for something completely different. And we'll get to Dan in just a moment. Wait, that's John Cleese. What's he going to say?
And now for something completely different.
Thanks, John. So tonight, I just got to tell you, it is my selective pleasure to feature an individual that I've only recently met on Twitter, but we appear to be of like minds, and with a bit of witty repartee back and forth, I have to admit I've since discovered that he's a bit of a Renaissance man and a man of many hats, Dan Heron. Now, he's never been in the Saloon before. until this moment, but the time I figured is right. Now, Dan was a political science major in college and took his master's in public administration. He was a Georgia State probation officer and a federal investigator for the U.S. District Courts in Mississippi and also in Alabama. Now, being involved in law enforcement and private investigations, I'm sure that Dan has, like myself, many a story to tell, kind of like Primus's Tommy the Cat. And if I had a producer, I would be playing Primus's Tommy the Cat right now, but I don't, so I didn't. Dan Herron now heads one of the most prestigious and important private investigatory twice in a row, not bad, firms in the entire state of Alabama. He's been handed the Best Private Investigators in Birmingham, Alabama award for 2017. So, with that, I'd like to welcome Dan Herron to the show. Dan, how are you?
Doing great, BZ. How are things out there on the left coast?
Cold. Rather cold. We actually had some rain early this morning, which around here is rather unusual. How is it over in Alabama?
Well, you know, that global warming thing is it's hit us pretty hard. I think it's about 23 outside with snow dusting on the ground. So a little unusual to get as much snow as we've had this year. But, of course, people freak out here and everything closed at lunch and everybody's indoors trying to literally weather the storm. But, you know, I guess it's probably better here weathering the storm than weathering the storm out there. I wonder if are you broadcasting from a pillbox or a studio?
No, it's an actual honest-to-God studio. It's a lot of people broadcast out of bedrooms and whatnot, but we got a really good deal. This is so weird. We got a really good deal on a studio, but it's actually a lot larger than people think because there are 4 places for people to sit.
No, I meant that at a military.
Oh.
You're behind enemy lines.
Oh, well,
that's what I'm saying.
Well, hell yeah, I'm behind enemy lines because I'm too damn close. But one of the reasons that we're so close here is because we got a good damn deal on the studio in terms of rent. So that said, when I think of Alabama, I'm sorry, sir, I don't relate that to snow. So what's your elevation where you are? Are you in Birmingham?
I'm in Birmingham. It's a little higher elevation than we're almost in the middle of the state, but you get a little bit south of here and it starts to get flat. The northern part of Alabama is pretty hilly. If you've ever been to Pittsburgh, Birmingham, for obvious reasons, reminds a lot of people of Pittsburgh because of the steel industry of both cities, and very hilly. So I don't know exactly what the sea level elevation is, but it surprises people when they get here for the first time that it's probably akin to the scenery in the Appalachians in West Virginia, something along those lines. So,
well, no one ever.
We don't get a lot of snow.
No one ever thinks that Birmingham is at 7,000 feet and that you get approximately 10 feet of snow every year. So, you know, that I didn't, until I started looking at Birmingham, I didn't realize that occurred. But anyway, having said that, what I usually do at the beginning of the show when I talk to somebody for the first time is ask them a little bit about themselves. So, where did you grow up and where'd you go to school?
I grew up in a little town in North Alabama, probably about an hour from the Tennessee line, called Guntersville. It's actually, if you're from the South, particularly in Alabama or one of the neighboring states, it's known as a sort of a resort town. There's a lake there. That's where, I guess, sort of the Super Bowl, I'm not really into it, but the whole Bassmasters thing, if you're into fishing and that sort of thing, you would really know where it is because they have the Super Bowl of Bassmasters there on a pretty regular basis where ESPN comes in and brings in the trucks. It's almost an island. With the exception of about a mile land bridge. It's technically a peninsula, but a gorgeous place, kind of like growing up in a little Mayberry, and a great place to grow up. But I went off to college initially at the University of Alabama and ended up finishing both my degrees at Jacksonville State, which is also in Alabama, smaller school, and got my bachelor's and my master's. You've already mentioned that, and then was off to the law enforcement world for a decade, and I've been in the private sector. This is my 20th year with my own private investigation firm.
So when you went for your master's in public administration, what were you aiming for?
Well, you know, it was one of those odd twists of fate. I wanted to be a city manager or something of that nature, but more than likely I was going to be in that realm. I was my second year in grad school. I was working for the Northeast Alabama Regional Planning Commission. As most states are, Alabama was drawn into different districts from the Great Depression era Roosevelt legislation that the federal government, it's sort of a quasi-agency. All states are carved up where you have these essentially regional planning commissions that do all sorts of things. And I was on track to do that. I had one elective in my graduate program, and I saved it to the end, and I took this class called Probation and Parole. And I thought it'd be fun. It would kind of free me up to do interviews my last semester. And I had this guy that was just really an unusual. You know, everybody who's been to college has got one of these stories where they got this professor that changed their life, but that's literally true in my case. He was a former prison guard in the state of Florida, and he was around the Tallahassee region, and he started going back to get his bachelor's degree in criminology at Florida State because it was obviously nearby. And he ended up getting his master's degree, and over the years finished his PhD and became an academic. So talk about a bending arc. If we're talking about that's so much in the news these days with Martin Luther King, I mean, that's quite a 180 that he did. And he just was that extraordinary mix of street smarts with academia. And I was just fascinated by the guy. And towards the end of the semester, he said the state of Georgia has just approved hiring, I think it was something along the lines of 100 state probation officers.
Okay.
And here's some applications if you're interested. And I just filled out one on a lark. And the next thing you know, I was off doing interviews. I took the test in Atlanta, did really well on it. And I got job offers almost immediately, which was unheard of and still is, you know, for the government. But they really had a push for it. At that time, Georgia was on the cutting edge of all sorts of alternative sentencing punishment and things that we take for granted now, a lot of home confinement and camps and different levels of security. Georgia was really on the cutting edge of that. So it was a great time to get in. And I started out in Milledgeville, Georgia, which is the old capital of Georgia, and that's the home of a couple of famous authors, Flannery O'Connor, and also the guy that did the Brer Rabbit. I can't remember his name. You might know. You're a little more well-read.
Darn it.
But anyway, just so, and that was also at the time the world's largest insane asylum had closed, Central State, because Reagan had let all the crazies out on the street.
Yes, he did.
So guess who gets, you know, any time in any job, but certainly in law enforcement and in probation in particular, you get the dump truck backed up when you're the new guy. So guess who got all the crazies and the loons that didn't have a place to go when they were let out?
Lucky you.
You're true. Right. So, you know, 23 years old, wet behind the ears, and I literally have a caseload full of lunatics. It was just absolutely a baptism that is hard to describe. You know, you go from a world, you know, even in college that has a sense of normalcy to this, you're thrown into this world where you're making sure somebody's got their Thorazine shots twice a day. And it was just really an amazing experience. But I got a call from the feds about 6 months into it, and I interviewed in Birmingham for a job in the Northern District of Alabama with a court system there. And they said, well, we're going to continue interviews. We'd definitely like to talk to you some more. Heard from them a couple of weeks later that said, we're going to hire you, but you got to go through an FBI background check. The problem was that was an election year. That was 1990. And George Bush, I think, what is that, H.W. Bush, George Bush Sr.?
Yep.
Was had just taken over, and as most people are familiar with now, because people are a little bit more politically aware than they were then. When you have a new administration come in, they have thousands, literally, of appointments, and so the FBI got put behind the 8 ball. Now, they contract a lot of that out now, but back then they did all the background checks. I had to go through a background check that normally would take about 2 to 3 months, and I was stuck with another 7 or 8 months in Georgia. I say that. I don't feel like I was stuck. I mean, it was a great experience, but eventually the background check came through, and I was hired and moved to Birmingham. I spent 4 years in the Northern District of Alabama, and then moved to Biloxi for 4 years in the Southern District of Mississippi with the same U.S. District Court system, which is essentially under the auspices of the now, I guess you could say, infamous Department of Justice. So that's kind of it in a thumbnail sketch of my my history with law enforcement with the government.
Folks, we're talking to Dan Herron, who used to work for the Georgia State Probation System, the federal law enforcement system, and now owns the Herron Group Investigations, based out of Birmingham, Georgia. Dan, we've got about 2.5, 3 minutes before the bottom of the hour break. And
right.
So tell me, when you say you're an investigator for that district, the U.S. district, what kind of investigations did you do?
Okay. There was a big sea change in I think it was 1989, but it was essentially implemented right around the time that I came on board. The federal courts always did brief sentence investigation reports on anyone who'd been convicted of a federal crime. They were essentially a social criminal financial history. This legislation implemented sentencing guidelines, which we sort of take for granted a lot these days, but it took there was so much publicity about disparate sentencing. For instance, in the South, statistics clearly showed, and still show in the state courts, that defendants are punished more harshly than other parts of the country. Women are generally punished lighter than men.
Okay.
Blacks sentenced more harshly than whites. So the federal government, Congress, passed legislation that said we're going to come up with essentially something that's blind a number system, essentially. And you have like your classic X and Y, which is based on the offense gets points. You have a base offense and then points added on. For instance, if you robbed a bank, you stole 20 grand, you got a base offense of 5 points, and then you do the money chart, 20 grand comes up, you get another 2 points, etc. And then you merge that with your criminal history, and where they intersect, you get a sentencing window. Let's say 48 to 62 months would be a fairly common range.
Okay.
The judge can't go outside of that sentencing range without specific reasons, what's called departures. So somebody had to do all that. So they came up with this group that put these things together because they're complex, and it had to be a neutral group. You can't let the prosecutors get hold of it, and obviously the defense is not an issue. So that's how this whole layer of investigators started that did the old school pre-sentence investigation report, where you still got the social, financial, criminal history, but then you've got these paramount and all-encompassing sentencing guidelines. And the old judges just hated them because, they just had so much power back then to sentence somebody to whatever the hell they felt like at the time. So you got two guys in a cell prior to sentencing guidelines. They both committed essentially the same crime. One gets sentenced by a judge that, his wife's riding his rear end that day. His tea time got rained out, and he hammers this guy with 10 years. The other guy, he comes from the West Coast, a little more laid back, and his judge, he shot a 69 on the course that day, and he's only doing 2 years. So what it did, it stopped all of that. Now these guys are essentially locked into that window of, let's say in this case I gave previously, the example I gave previously, 48 to 62 months. So
okay, Dan,
that's essentially what I did.
We're going to have to take a break. It's the bottom of the hour break.
Okay.
We're going to be right back. We are talking, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, to Dan Herron. He owns the private investigation firm, the Herron Group, from Birmingham, Alabama. And when we come back, I'm going to ask him a question about a pivotal point, or what some sort of pivotal points in his life may be. And you are listening to the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. You can watch live on the SHR YouTube channel, and you can also watch live on the SHR Media Facebook page. Folks, come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reverb Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reverb Common Sense, and you're listening to SHRmedia.com.
And that is absolutely true. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are, in fact, listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com and you will be there. Lots of folks in chat. Welcome to those in chat. We've been talking to Dan Herron, who is a former law enforcement officer for the federal government, also used to be a Georgia state probation officer. And what I like to do with people that come here for the first time is I always ask this of the people that I speak to. I quantify life as perhaps a series of pivotal points and times when, for example, your life, it's going one particular direction, and then, boom, suddenly somebody moved the goalposts. I had, for example, at least 3 critical pivot points in my life. So I'll wager, Dan Herron, that you've had at least one of those, a pivotal point. What was it in particular, and were there more?
Well, I just told you one of them. There's no doubt that this professor changed my life. I was hooked. I mean, from the moment he cracked that book in the first class, and it's my understanding he's also gone back home now, and he's a professor down at Florida State. A guy that used to be, the nomenclature back then was a screw, and that was a derogatory term. I don't have to tell you that. Now at the, one of the most prestigious universities in the South, if not the nation, and that's a great story about America. And I was on course to be, not that I didn't enjoy it, because I really did. I really enjoyed I was an assistant urban planner, for lack of a better term at the time. I was on track to be either a city manager or an urban planner. And that one class changed my life. I've had 3 jobs since then. That Georgia State probation officer job for slightly over a year. And then I worked almost a decade as a federal law enforcement officer, and this is my 20th year in the private sector, owning my own private investigation firm. So that was a pretty big inflection point, you know. So for sure that one. You know, other than that, if you want some more, I think mine would be more like, compared to that one, and the seismic effect that had on my life would be more like, they would be a little, I don't know, micro inflection points, you know. Luckily, knock on wood, haven't had any major health problems, anything of that nature. I've tried to stay in pretty good shape. So, you know, that's odd that you asked that, and I'd already covered it. I may be your first guest ever to do that, right?
Well, that's okay, because it's your life to live, for gosh sakes. But I always want to ask, because I get some amazing stories that no one foresaw when I ask that, and then a lot of folks, upon reflection, will say something, and then they turn out like, oh my God, I didn't realize how incredibly critical at that time that situation was. So you were in law enforcement. You were a probation officer. Everybody in law enforcement, myself included, we have a damn oil tanker full of crazy, wacky stories. Is there at least one wacky, crazy story that you can relate while you were in law enforcement?
Well, you know, that's the problem about being a law enforcement officer, is you get a warped sense of what's normal. I mean, I've been shot at on more than one occasion. I've been left for dead, you know, sucker punched and left for dead out of all places, Tootsie's Lounge, you know, in Nashville. I mean, these stories go on and forever. And, you know, it takes about 3 or 4 times a year, somebody will ask me something, and I can see their eyes as big as saucers, like either this guy's lying or this is just a bizarre life that he lives. And you just get, and I think you could identify with this, BZ. When you're in law enforcement, your day-to-day life is so different from when you hang it up at, say, 5 o'clock or whatever, and you go home to your other life, in quotes, that you take it for granted, though, that other people don't live lives like this. You know,
you have to be able to switch it off. And by the way, that would make an excellent title for a movie or a novel. Sucker Punched at Tootsie's Lounge. That's going in my head, okay? I'm going to remember that one if I write a book.
Oh, I got some better than that. But, I mean, that gives you an example, you know, of it's just such a bizarre road that I took and I'm still on. You know, it's just it's surreal sometimes, and it takes somebody to ask me something specifically like that so that, you know, I can see their mouth agape, and then I realize, oh, yeah, I don't have a normal job, okay? And that's good and bad. You know, sometimes that sucks. You know, I think you and I have communicated several times this week when I've gotten in at roughly 3 a.m., on Central Time, as a result of being out working, and rather dangerous situation that I'm working right now. So they're not all like that. I mean, you shift gears. You know, a lot of these cases we work are you know, they're boring and mundane, and then you have this huge chasm between them and the cases where, you know, I'm literally in danger, you know. So, and I will say this, one thing that is odd that I had to learn the hard way early on. I thought when I left the federal government, I thought, you know, I'm going to take this job out in the private sector now, and it's going to be a lot less dangerous. Stress levels are going to go down. No. You know, I worked with some of the world's most dangerous criminals with the federal government, as you know, generally tries to make statements with indictments. They don't have the resources to indict everybody that violates some minor federal crime, so they tend to make big statements. And I think roughly 5% of crimes convicted every year are federal crimes. So they want to make big PR statements in every district. I think there's 96 districts. And every district out of those 96 districts, every month, when those grand juries come out, the DOJ wants to make a statement. So these cases, you're dealing with large drug organizations. You're dealing with they purposely want to grab headlines. So you're dealing with extremely dangerous individuals on a regular basis. But in my capacity, I had the badge, and most of them were already convicted or on bond, and they didn't want to mess with me, because I had a lot of control over their future. So I went from turning in my badge to going into working with more, quote, normal people. Now, keep in mind that roughly, I would say, 70% of our revenue is probably divided between 40% domestic work. Now I'm on the other side of the criminal realm. I'm in criminal defense because of my experience. So I'm still going into these rough neighborhoods, projects, you name it. Most of them are capital murder cases. And I don't have a badge anymore. And I've got no leeway with them. So I'm either dealing with a highly criminal element that has no, that doesn't respect me at all, and really no recourse. I don't have any badge now. Only a few years ago, because of a pretty dangerous incident, I actually started carrying a weapon again. The anti-Griffith method I realized is not going to work anymore. But, it's just, it was the complete opposite of what I thought. So I went from working on paper with extremely dangerous criminals to working now, and you know who presents, and I think you'll identify with this. You know who presents probably more danger than anybody are these domestic cases where people get wound up.
Yep.
They got some of them no criminal history, and if I'm not mistaken, BZ, you probably know a lot more about this than me. But it's been a pretty well-known statistic that factors out every year that most police officers that are killed in the line of duty answering domestic calls than all the other reasons they're killed combined. Am I on the right track with that?
You're absolutely on the right track with that. And the reason for that, as everyone probably well knows, and certainly yourself, is because you're not dealing with rational people in a rational situation. You're dealing with people that are absolutely buzzing with adrenaline and emotions. And when you walk in, you're walking in and interrupting those emotions. And it's not a good state of play at all. By the way, I found it interesting. When I looked at your website. Your website is herringroup.com, HERRIN group.com. And the interesting thing that I found, and you've been going, like you said, doing this for 20 years, since 1998, is your motto of your group is seeing what others cannot see. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm referring to my competition. Of course, in a capitalist society, a lot of times you're trying to differentiate yourself from your competition when it comes to marketing. And that was a direct aim at my competition. It's a competitive business. Just being in any business, as you know, is competitive. But, that was something I really felt from the heart. That, I think I've got a really unique background, and we're able to get that extra sense of what's going on in a case that others cannot see. And that's why I used a watchtower as our logo. That was my idea to have to represent sort of that metaphor of looking down on others where you have a vantage point that others don't have. And that's kind of true, and at least around here. I can't speak for other regions in the country, but I felt like my background really prepared me really well for the private investigation business, and it's just really played out well for me. I mean, you obviously have to have a skill set that you're born with,
right?
But my experience really helped a lot. I don't think there's any question about it. So that's kind of where that goes with that sort of marketing angles, what that is.
So after messaging back and forth on Twitter, and that's where I essentially met you, and then we spoke on the telephone as well, you're obviously a conservative. So what was there any moment of awareness when one day you woke up and you said, you know what I am? I am a conservative. I am a Republican. I'm someone that is far away from anything on the far left. Was there any point where you said, okay, I know what I am, and this is my political philosophy?
Well, I was kind of a political junkie growing up, BZ. I watched these elections. I can remember watching the 1976 convention and just being fascinated by the whole thing. And, this is a crazy story. You've reminded me, I hadn't thought about this in years. Here's an interesting twist. My mom is extremely liberal. Now, I don't know where she gets that. But I met George Wallace. This is before he got shot. My mom worked on his campaign when I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and he came through my little town on a campaign trail, and I got to meet him. And, they say kids and dogs have a sixth sense.
Right.
I didn't like him, okay? I didn't like him. Now, I've actually thought more of him over the years the more I've learned about him. I think he was really more of a he was almost like a carnival barker. He was just going to say what he needed to say to get elected. But he was a pugnacious individual. But I just didn't like him. His competitor at the time, a guy named Albert Brewer, who was also kind of a beloved character in Alabama, and that's just too much to get sidetracked on. But he comes through. I meet him, instantly connected with the guy. And, I was hooked going outside the courthouse with these little rallies that they had, and my mom had all these Wallace stickers all over the place. And so imagine being a kid with diametrically opposed political views to your mom at 5 years old.
That's a little unusual.
And listen, my mom's still alive, so you can imagine the last 8 years, or between 2008 and 2016. I tried to really be quiet. I got apathetic over the years. I worked on a couple of campaigns in college. Another sort of rapscallion that is a part of Alabama lore is a guy named Emory Falmer, the former mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, who was quite a character. On a lark, my cousin and I call him up, get him on a landline. We were at a junior college in Boaz, Alabama, and we decided that we were going to get him to come to speak to campus. This is really the naivete of youth encapsulated right here. He picks up the phone and said, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "Well, we want to bring you to the campus to have you speak." He said, "Well, all right, I'll have somebody get in touch with you boys, and I'll just need somebody to pick me up." So we pick the guy up. He's got a fifth of whiskey. He downs the four, going out to speak to the congregation. A faculty member, imagine this. I mean, this fits great with today, was a complete jerk, stood up and confronted him in such a completely undiplomatic way that it really cast a pall over the whole thing. But it was a great experience. But this professor was extremely liberal. Emory Falmer was, the only thing missing was a gun at his side. I mean, he was literally a gunslinger, and he was a sort of a legendary figure in Alabama in itself. But I learned quickly that politics is a dirty, dirty game, and I just, over the years, became more and more apathetic. But everything changed in 2015. I didn't vote for years. Prior to that, I guess you could say I was almost like, I hope some of your audience would be familiar with this, but the term yellow dog Democrat, they're basically an extinct species, but essentially means somebody by today's standards who would be pretty conservative, most of them in the South. And I can remember, and you probably can too, to some degree, BB.
Zell Miller, you could not have another Zell Miller in the Democrat Party today. You couldn't have a Joe Lieberman in the Democrat Party today. Hell, you couldn't have a Jack Kennedy in the Democrat Party
They
today.
wouldn't make it past the local levels because they would get squashed by the identity police, okay? So, I can remember, though, when I legitimately might vote for a yellow dog Democrat. I might vote for a Republican. Well, what was it, 25 years that we've slowly morphed into a situation where I don't recognize either party, okay? And I don't like either party, and I want both of them destroyed because the identity politics and the radicals and these idiots that have almost made the Democratic Party to me now is, their platform is almost like a parody. Sometimes you feel like you're watching a skit with the transgender bathrooms and these idiotic pussy hats. And, it really seems surreal. But how much better are we on the right with the globalists and the rhinos right before our eyes? But it didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly. They hijacked the Republican Party to the point that your average guy, there's nobody representing him, no matter what color he is. If you're busting your ass, you're going to work, and you're trying to do the right thing, nobody's thinking about you anymore. They're either thinking about the fat cats or they're thinking about these weirdos that are completely antisocial, have no life. A lot of them are just flat out Marxist. And Trump changed everything for me.
Okay,
Not initially.
Let me ask you a question.
But he changed everything.
I got to ask you a question. We got about 7 more minutes left. Have you ever, Dan, ever in your life seen such a conglomerate of forces, unified forces against one individual on so many levels as that which is leveled against Donald Trump? This is absolutely unprecedented. I've been here for 7 decades, for God's sake. I have never, ever seen an individual survive an assault like this on so many planes, from Democrats, from the American media maggots, from the Republicans, from everyone, progressives, you name it. I don't know how this guy survives, but that's apparently then why you went to Trump.
I'll tell you what, I think we are witnessing something that's almost like a biblical parable, and I don't say that lightly. It's really astonishing. I used to think that Donald Trump was somewhat of a buffoon. A buffoon. There's different degrees. Okay, the guy's a billionaire, but I thought he was just a showman, and I think I used the term carnival barker to describe George Wallace earlier. I thought that applied to him, but I'll tell you what, he changed my mind completely when that whole Miss Universe thing went down, and and he said rightfully so that I think it was some Hispanic former winner that came off like a tramp, and she was associated with some cartel member after that, and he said she tarnished the image. Well, the next thing you know, the left is whipping out the same old tired but very effective playbook. And what's the number one part of that shame template that they use? That's the race card. And it has destroyed even so many good people who didn't even get a chance to represent themselves because there is no mass media for anybody who's not on the left. And what did Trump do? He basically said, F you. Okay, the Macy's thing, they basically said, we're done with you. We don't like your comments, and your clothing line is done. What did people start doing? They start cutting their cards up, taking the time to not only cancel their accounts, but cutting them up and sending them in by the thousands. Next thing you know, Trump's first victim. Macy's goes bankrupt. NBC, they want to use the shame playbook. What happens to him? The week after, I think it was, that NBC said, yeah, we got this. This tells you how powerful identity politics are. He's got like this extremely high-rated show for years, number one for years, and they say, we're going to cancel your show because you slandered this poor Hispanic girl who used to be a Miss Universe winner. And what does he do? This is where this to me was the greatest inflection point in modern American political history. He goes to, I believe it was Laredo, Texas, and the next thing you know, he's on the border. He's got the Mexican mayor, the Mexican police chief, and several city council members by his side, and he's broadcasting on a stage towards the Mexican border, and he's got not only him talking about immigration issues, but he's got these Mexican Americans talking about how it's destroying their city. And I said, this guy right here, who in their right mind would do that if they didn't mean it? I mean, who's going to put themselves through what he's already put himself through, and he's about to put himself through a true crucible? This guy is made of something different. And right then I said, we're on board. Now, the now famous flyover at Ladd Stadium in Mobile, where Jeff Sessions introduced him to a screaming capacity crowd of 40,000, where the wings tipped before he landed in, sort of a salute to the crowd. Everybody thinks that was the inflection point, but that crowd wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for that Laredo moment. And that's where he got me. That's where he got millions more. He reeled in and hooked in. And from that moment, because I knew inherently and in my bones, I could feel it. I know you could, millions of us could, that our country was teetering on the edge of extinction as we knew it if Crooked Hillary got elected. So I went from being apathetic to I'm going to do every single thing I can to help get this man elected. And that's when I my Twitter account, I got on it. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to help DJT any way that I could,
The funny thing was, I was not a Trump guy from the very get-go. I was a Ted Cruz guy. And then the candidates were chunked off one by one by one by one, and he was the last man standing. Then I started listening to what he was saying. Then I started to understand something about him. Now, like you, I waver back and forth, but I've gotten to the point now where my position is I'm going to watch what it is that he actually does as opposed to what it is that he says. People don't understand that he's a New York kind of guy, and he doesn't mind getting down and dirty.
Exactly.
And that's what people absolutely hate about him. The people on the right say he's absolutely unpresidential. If you saw or heard what happened today at the press conference from the doctor that gave Donald Trump his medical exam, these people were going off the damn rails. But my default position now is this. The more they push, the more I'm going to support Trump, depending on what it is that he does. And for his first year, my God, whoever saw an individual running for president that kept most of his promises? Heresy. We got about 1.5 minutes left.
Yeah, if you're a fan of Warren Buffett, and and to me, he's he's got some good qualities, but he's not quite the American hero I think that he portrays himself to be. That's a whole other story. But to me, his success is closely tied with his right-hand man, Charlie Munger, who's in the background, who constantly preaches the fact that human psychology is so complex. And there's never been a better example. And you saw this in your career in law enforcement, but you see it no matter what career you're in. You see it every day. People will generally go with their confirmation bias. And, your emotions trick you. Trump is an abrasive individual, particularly for certain parts of the country. You're not paying attention to what he's really saying. You're paying attention to the way he says it and his mannerisms, and you're missing the entire point that we have an extraordinary individual here. I mean, he's taken down 2 political dynasties in the course of less than 2 years. He's now got his target set on the MSM, and God help him. But, I tell people, look, God said about David, he's a man after my own heart. Well, I don't have to tell you about David's background. He took David under his wing for a very important mission, but David had a sordid history. Well, you don't send in sheep to fight lions. You find another lion. You find a tougher lion, And you tell me a better place to prepare a lion for the political arena than the most vicious arena of all, and that's the New York real estate market. Oh. This is a walk in the park, okay? Trump's enjoying this.
It is. And the best thing about it is he mostly doesn't give one crap less about what anybody thinks. Folks, we've been talking to Dan Herron. He's the owner of Herron Group Investigations. And I'd like to thank Dan for his time and for staying up so late, since, after all, Dan, you're in Alabama, and I'm way over on the left coast, the other side of the philosophical spectrum as well. So before we go, Dan, please tell us where you can be found on the Internet, your website and your social media.
Yeah, and before I do that, thanks so much, BZ, for having me on. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Because God knows you're doing the yeoman's work out there. I was in San Diego 2 months ago. Sewage in the streets down in the Lamplighter district, and it's just really sad. But a whole other story there. You can find me at herringroup.com. Be careful not to put 2 G's in there. It's HERRIN. Add the word group.com. That's all you need to do. You can contact me through there. I've got a Twitter account at Dan O. Herron. And you should be able to find me there. Be sure to add the O. There's several Dan Herons on there. So it's Dan O. Herron on Twitter. And I would advise all patriots to get on Twitter. I initially got on there just as a sort of a social media lark, but it came in really handy for trying to follow the political machinations that went on and avoiding all the MSM lies. And I've had a blast on Twitter. How would I have met somebody like you if it wasn't for Twitter? Even though Twitter is basically evil and slanted towards the leftists, but it gives us a way to get around the MSM. And God bless Twitter, and God bless you for all you do.
Well, thank you very much. And I got my final question to you, Dan, is would you ever consider coming back?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
You just tell me when, brother, and I'll be there.
Okay. We'll have to do it. Folks, we were talking to Dan Herron, and I got to say again, Dan, thank you ever so kindly for your time, sir. Take care. God bless.
Really enjoyed it.
And be safe. Folks, you've been listening
All
to
right, good night,
Good night, Dan. You are listening.
All right, take care.
to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, Carrie Baxter Donovan.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplains.talkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on shrmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it
again. Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about? Just the last question you cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied Fornicalia, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, from the locus of evil, the entire locus of evil on the left coast, which is Sacramento, Fornicalia. And we had just gotten through speaking to Dan Heron, a private investigator, owns his own business, the Heron Group Investigations from Birmingham, Alabama. Have to have Dan on again sometime. Dan, I hope you enjoyed it. I did. But now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'd like to present whom I call and typify as the East Coast political goddess. Now, when I first started telling her this, I think she was a doubter. She was like Doughty Doubterton. And I think I may have convinced her slightly of this because she's stepping up in the world. And we're going to ask her how and why. But just like we do every time, I have to say, welcome to the show, Carrie Baxter Donovan. How the hell are you?
Oh, I have been waiting all day to talk to you. I'm good. Thank you.
No, all day.
Yes, all day. Well, I mean, actually, like, I don't know, has it been 2 weeks or 3 weeks maybe? The entire time I've been waiting to talk to you.
Wow, okay. Once again, Carrie Baxter Donovan putting her entire life on hold just for me. Wow, so how the hell have you been since then? How was your Christmas? How was your Christmas? How was your New Year?
Yes, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Christmas was awesome. My son was home, so it's so happy. And New Year's was awesome. I went to this outrageous party, and it was so much fun. It was a grown man, a Danish grown man, who cleared out the entire bottom part of his house and made it a party room. And he had like strobe lights and pinball machines and music and liquor, and it was awesome. It was so much fun. So I had a great New Year, and I've been writing a ton of articles. There's so much going on. My head is spinning.
Yes, you have.
And
it's like there's so much going on. It's like, where the hell do you start, for God's sake?
Oh, right. So, and today I actually had to just kind of sit back and watch and take a break because there's so much going on just today, another little like microcosm. And so I had to just like, okay, I'm just going to wait to talk to BZ and we'll see what we talk about. It's staggering. It's staggering. So I've been having a great time writing a ton of articles. I'm over at Nation One News now as well as Big League Politics because I just want to write and write and write so much. So I'm depositing some articles. Oh, and I was so excited. Yesterday was my biggest day in citizen journalism.
Okay.
Because James O'Keefe, who's working on the biggest censorship story,
oh God, yes,
put one of my articles on his timeline yesterday, and I'm just like, that guy just rocks. I could talk about him for days. He's so awesome. And he picked up my little story, and he put it on his timeline and retweeted it, and that to me is a really big deal and sort of an accomplishment. So,
well,
I'm just happy.
Let's go back a little bit. Now, you're getting so professional. I looked this up. Well, actually, you sent me the link. I'm cheating. You sent me the link. So anyway, okay, but at least
you kept shoving it. You pay attention to me. Pay attention to me, right?
I know, but okay, don't think that I don't read these things
right.
and that I don't go over there. And now you have a bio. You actually have a bio. So here's the bio of Carrie Baxter Donovan. It says, Carrie Donovan is an ex-community organizer who writes about voter engagement, cultural Marxism, and campaigns. She has been a grassroots volunteer with the GOP on and off for 18 years. She homeschools 3 great kids. Carrie loves photojournalism and citizen journalism. So that's what you've said for quite some time, that it's opened all these doors for you being a citizen journalist. So the link also has a bunch of your articles on it, and you said, okay, well, which one is BZ going to talk about? Well, look at all the stuff that you've got written. Your newest article is what you referred to, Twitter Privacy Doesn't Exist, Project Veritas Twitter, Undercover Part 3. And then there's another article that says, FEMA okayed alert, questions mount on missile alert snafu, EMA, and the history of mismanagement. There's another article you wrote, Inspector General report due January 15th may be explosive. Another one you wrote, triggered Bill Clinton. This, when I heard this, I was, good God, I was so happy because the first thing I did is I kind of read the article in my best Bill Clinton voice, and I did not pay for that wedding dress. I did not.
Because sometimes, hey, I say I'm Scottish and Irish, and if I cannot always skip the opportunity to show a little tomfoolery. I mean, I'm trying to do straight news, but I mean, come on, Bill Clinton. I have to, I got to show a little fast sometimes.
I did not have a relationship with that woman, Monica Lewinsky.
I just couldn't resist. I couldn't resist, BZ. I was like, these chuckleheads, I gotta write this stuff sometimes.
God, it's like this. It's true, but let's go. There's a whole bunch more, but I want to go back and
I'm glad you like that.
And talk to you about this one. You wrote, I think it was January 15th, yesterday, you wrote, Inspector General report due January 15th, may be explosive. Yeah. Okay, so tell everybody why it is that you think that's going to be an explosive report for the DOJ, or for the IG.
Right, so this is a fascinating part of the story. There's another one that I wrote on the IG whose name is Michael Horowitz. And so how I'm doing this, I want to slip this in case there are any other citizen journalist wannabes out there. So what I started doing was following Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, because they're just like on every show. Hannity, they're on Fox, everywhere.
Jordan,
and I know Mark Meadows
Jim
from
Jordan
here in North
is
Carolina.
Great. Jim Jordan is incredible.
So these guys are great, and at first it was overwhelming to me, like committees and who and what. And so I just started following these two guys, and I follow their Twitter, and I follow them, and I know Mark Meadows from here in North Carolina, so I feel a little familiar with him. I don't know him very well, but I mean I've met him. And so anyway, I started following what they're saying, and these guys dropped this name, Michael Horowitz, and they made the statement at some point saying, well, when the Inspector General's report comes out, and I'm like, what? That just made my little ears go up, like, what's that? And so I started researching what is this IG? Because you don't hear about it in the mainstream news. MSNBC is not picking up on what Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows are saying. So that's where the story begins for me, is when I heard them saying this name, and they said it all depends on when this IG report comes out, right? And so that's where I started researching, looking up. His name is Michael Horowitz, right? Am I getting my people confused? Because there's so many moving parts here. He, within the last 2 or 3 days, gave 1.2 million documents to the Intelligence Committee. So there are all these different committees that are doing things that I sometimes get them mixed up. But I believe it's the Intelligence Committee. And so he just dropped all of these documents, and Mark Meadows was saying again today that within all of this 1.2 million documents are some new documents that they haven't seen before. And why is that? Because this guy is the top watchdog, and he's supposed to have had access to everything, because he's actually there in his position to oversee things that are happening from the benefit of the taxpayer.
Okay.
So he's supposed to have access to everything, except the Obama administration blocked him. And who specifically did that? Sally Yates. And I have another article, if you're interested in this, on the IG, and I show he's involved with all of these people. Because you start to wonder, like, what's going on? Well, he's been doing his own independent investigation for over a year of Mueller. But no, you don't know about that.
No, nice.
You don't know about this guy,
a nice
right?
sub rosa investigation that no one knows about. That's awesome. I love it.
So his 1.2 million documents, and that has a lot to do with what Noonan saw at the White House, and he came out and he had this, briefing, and he was kind of shaken. It was like, what did he see there? Well, it has a lot to do with the FISA report, how they got the FISA report. This guy has everything. Okay, so Sally Yates blocked him. He couldn't get access. Out of, I don't know how many, 96 IGs, 47 of them signed a letter saying, we want access that we're not getting. And that started an investigation with Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan about a year ago. So what's happening is what they believe is going to happen. Why is it going to be explosive? Because he's been watching the watchers. So Sean Hannity wrote something, or not Sean Hannity, somebody wrote for Sean Hannity on SeanHannity.com. There's a Watching the Watchers is really the title. But if you see in my stories, or in my articles, if you go down a couple of days, there's another one there with a whole bunch of links in it about the IG, and it will really take you deeper. But this is the story that if you keep hearing hints about something else is coming, so Mark Meadows is now really, within the last couple of days, really ratcheting it up, saying the collusion was going on with Hillary, not with Trump. So you're seeing this Mueller thing is starting to come to an end, especially with Bannon. Now he's going to be back on Thursday. I think the end is coming for Mueller. And Mark Meadows wants Jeff Sessions to do something by tomorrow, I think. So what's going to happen is all of a sudden you're going to have another investigation, but this time it's going to be of all of these Obama scandals. And that's what, in the article, it talks about what people think is going on is like the Fast and Furious, the Fusion GPS, all of this stuff from Obama is going to just start spewing out. And that's why they were so desperate to keep Trump out of there.
Here's what I fervently believe, and I've been gone for a while, and I if I show up on Sackheads tomorrow, and so far I think I will. I don't know. I've said for a long time, and I was absolutely convinced of it, since the Democrats have never fully come to grips with the fact that Hillary Clinton, though she cheated as much as she did and broke laws, the likes of which everyone on her side decided, well, she's not culpable for anything, but they never did transition over to November 9th. And they decided at that time that the meme was going to be Trump and Russia. They will fucking rue the day that they ever decided to open that door, because once they did, they weren't sufficiently intelligent to realize that not just a couple people, but a fucking herd of people are walking through that door. And it's taken a while, granted. I'm not a patient individual, but what is my choice? I have to be. More and more, you and I are seeing that the people who are actually collusionists, who are betraying our entire country to the point where I would suggest the word treason, and I would definitely use the word RICO against all of these people working in concert to what I believe is an actual conspiracy, and that, with all those people linked together, makes it an organization. And for the corruption in terms of the RICO, that would make it a racketeer-influenced corrupt organization, meaning they all had an end goal in mind. And we will discover, and you tell me if you think this is correct, what we will discover is that there was, is, and is continuing to be a soft coup by a cabal of individuals whose only purpose is to slay Donald Trump and get their former lives back, which includes power and money, but mostly power.
Right. And what there's the terminology that they're starting to use, if you watch these committee members, the Republican committee members, is that he's being framed with false crimes. They have used the word treason. Trump used the word treason in a Wall Street Journal article. I wrote about that as well. He literally used the word treason. And so it's already been put out there. And the FISA, getting the FISA court warrant from the dossier, which they know was false, in order to spy on people, and then to take that and in order to get their Mueller probes in order to bust people like Mike Flynn. Then, at the same time, there's so many moving parts, something that I'm researching, and I'm actually in touch with the lawyer on this one, is the Committee to Defend the President is suing the DNC. And that's something, again, the mainstream media is not telling people about. And that's why so many people are confused about what's happening. It's like, you don't understand the collusion, the treason, the sedition, is massive. They have all the proof, and it's all coming together.
It's taken time.
They've been waiting.
It's taken time, but it's so, as you already realize, it is so incredibly interlinked. Here's another story that just came out that people are not paying any attention to. Manafort lawyer says Mueller charges have nothing to do with Russian investigation or the Trump campaign.
Right.
Yes,
exactly.
That's absolutely correct. And then when you discover that Mueller has assembled, again, I would use the word cabal, a cabal of attorneys, not one of fucking which is a moderate or a Republican, and then you have Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, etc., all, and, you know, everyone's paramour involved in this stuff. Then you go back to Michael Flynn, and all the Democrats are saying, see what happened to Michael Flynn? See what happened to Paul Manafort? That proves that Trump's a bad guy. Well, if you're Manafort's attorney, and if you're Michael Flynn's attorney, are you not doing somersaults saying, oh, my God, this will be the easiest case to overturn because none of these guys are fair, and they're all biased from the get-go.
They're all, and I've interviewed a couple of different lawyers and Bob Barr. God. Remember Bob Barr, an FBI agent? And it's like our country is so divided with what people are. There are some people who are steeped in reality, and then there are some people who are just like political swamp creatures. They don't care what the heck happens as long as their party is winning. And and some of them are FBI agents. And it's not all of the FBI agents, but the leadership of the FBI, when you find out, it's actually they try to subvert our democracy and overthrow an election, and it's the FBI. And there's a bunch of articles that I've written on that too, so that's what I'm really trying to focus on. And where I'm going to branch out into is this DNC story, the Committee to Defend the President. That one is very interesting to me because that really shows what they had planned, and that has a lot to do with Donna Brazile and why she came out with her book, and so there's that part.
It's all incredibly interlinked. It's all incredibly corrupt. And what we're discovering bit by little fetid bit is what you already know. It's all involving the Democrats, the leftists, in collusion, in fact, with the American media maggots. Now, when you talked about the FBI.
And the media is involved.
The FBI went to the FISA court initially to try to get that particular warrant to go against a citizen of the United States. During a campaign. He was not yet president. This is back in 2016. So they trot into a FISA court. What I know about a FISA court, because I've worked for the feds for some time, is generally you can make a FISA court suggestion or submit an affidavit in terms of the reaction would be akin to like grand jury ham sandwich. Now, that having been said, the FISA judge at the time turned him down.
Right.
So then they thought, okay, we need Plan B. What was Plan B? Plan B was the Trump dossier, paid for by the DNC, Hillary Clinton, and I have to be honest, one dude from the Washington Free Beacon, who's not a Republican. They paid cash for that.
There's all sorts of, and there are a couple of more articles about that I wrote. They were leaking it to the media. Yes. And they knew that it was unverified when they took it, so they've perpetrated a fraud on the foreign court.
Yes.
So now you've got that.
No,
and
stop just for a second. Stop just for a second. Do you remember the federal judge that recused himself over this particular case?
Yes.
Who was that judge? He was a FISA court judge. Gosh. My bet, guaranteed, is that his signature is somewhere on one of those, either a refusal or an acceptance of the submitted affidavit. And that's why he said,
I read something.
I think
I'll send it to you if I can find it. Yeah, I read something.
I'm going to recuse myself on this. Guaranteed, Carrie.
Well,
you're going to find his fingerprint is on that.
Now, there's another article that I wrote about the Admiral of the Navy, Rogers. What is his first name? It's, I can't remember his first name.
Michael.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so another Michael? Wow, there are a lot of Michaels. Okay, so but I just know that the Admiral and, of course, the Navy, because I love the Navy. So the Navy, he was there following, and he had turned over all of this NSA corruption. He got a deputy to investigate. He came in after Snowden. I wrote about that in the one that says The Ghost of Edward Snowden. So they know. They have the evidence.
Well, see,
that's the exciting thing about it. That all of this stuff is going to start to come out that they knew.
It all dovetails.
That it was illegal.
33,000 emails on the server that were absolutely untouched by the FBI. The fix was in from the very beginning,
and it was the leadership. The specific.
Yes, it was at
the
the
same
top.
guys all the time.
It was at the top. The fix wasn't in at the tarmac meeting. Oh, fuck no. The fix was in from the very beginning. These people, the FBI, elements of the FBI, in concert with the DOJ, wanted to stop this from going on. Now, I will say, it's generally the upper management and leadership, middle to upper management of both of these organizations, because I'm not going to skewer abjectly both of these organizations, but the corruption from the top is absolutely unprecedented, and I still speak to the FBI guys now and then. Still, after over a year, and what Comey did in terms of ripping the FBI asunder, he ripped it apart, and the FBI, the line-level agents, despise his ass.
Well, and I go back to this story. I was out in New Hampshire, and I was walking my dog, and I ran into a very nice man who was out walking his dog, and we were walking our dogs, and we were talking about politics, because somehow I'm always started talking about politics, and I'd never have seen him since this. I saw him one time, and he told me he was working with the Homeland Security. He was some bigwig in Homeland Security at some point. When I talked to him, he's retired. But he told me, he kind of leaned in and he said, let me tell you something. I want you to understand this. The average FBI agent is as American as you and I.
Bingo.
It's the leadership.
Bingo.
It's the leadership. And he said when the average American who supports Hillary finds out how corrupt and how horrible she is, we're more worried that they're going to freak out than we are about terrorists. And from that day, that was my perspective, because I believed him, and he gave me some other reasons to believe him that I can't say right now, but
it's true.
But I knew,
It's absolutely true. We got 1 minute before the bottom of the hour break. Now, when we come back, we're talking, by the way, to Carrie Baxter Donovan, whom I quantify as the East Coast political goddess, live and direct here on the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct also on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. When we come back, I want to go through a couple more of Carrie Baxter Donovan's stories, because some of them are really interesting, and I bet most people haven't heard about them. But what we're going to do also is we're going to talk about the nemesis, the bull in the china shop, that which shall not be named, Steve Bannon.
No, we have to name him. He's my favorite.
I know, that's true.
I just love him. Okay.
Okay, we will get to Steve, but before we do that, when we get back, I have some other articles that I'd like to go over with you folks. You're listening to Carrie Baxter Donovan and BZ on the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. We're going to have a break and then come right back, okay? Is that all right with you?
You're listening to the
Just
SHR Media
so much
Network.
tonight. I'm going to be right here.
Good
When you
evening.
get back.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The Right Guy on SHR Media.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on shrmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it
again. Some of the best A-roll is going to be evil.
Like, what are you talking about? Just the last push we really cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the SHR Media Network, live and direct on the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show from the palatial SHR Media Studios, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied Fornicalia, less than 2 miles from the locus of evil, almost in the entire damn universe, the capital, Sacramento, Fornicalia. The first hour we spoke to Dan Herron. Now we're speaking to Carrie Baxter Donovan, the East Coast political goddess. Carrie, before we get to some of your articles, I want to tell you about one that I saw today. I don't know if you're cognizant of it, but when I saw this, my heart went all aflutter. And I immediately went back to the Chief Dan George line from, I think, Jeremiah Johnson. And it's like this: My heart soars like an eagle. And it's this. The headline is, Homeland Security pursues charges against leaders of sanctuary cities. Hey,
I knew you'd love that one.
Did you see this trumpeted near and far
I
on
did.
all the American
I knew it.
media maggot stations, CNN, the repository of all truth in the universe, MSNBC, CNBC, ABC, CBS, ABC. No, you didn't. The answer is no, you didn't. And it goes something like this. Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nielsen confirmed Tuesday that her department has asked federal prosecutors to see if they can lodge criminal charges against sanctuary cities that refuse to cooperate with federal deportation efforts. Stop. Stop right there.
Yeah.
For all you people who decided that voting for Hillary Clinton and you're a Republican, or staying away and you're a Republican, and you're a never-Trumper and you're a Republican, do you possibly think that anything like this would ever have occurred under Hillary Clinton? Because by Republicans, you staying home and deciding you're not going to vote for Trump, you would have gotten the exact opposite of this. And in fact, the leftists would have pushed even harder a port than they are now. And they're pushing remarkably hard at this point. So the whole gist, the crux of the biscuit is this. Can you imagine where the hell we would be right now with Hillary Rodham Clinton? Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. So and here's something interesting about that story. So Jeff Sessions, we're going back and forth with him, and I met him, and I really liked him, and I thought he was going to be doing this great, aggressive, alpha male thing in the Department of Justice, and it kind of looks like he let us down, and there's all this kabuki theater, people fighting. But he has been very strong on this topic, so you should love him. When I watch him in hearings and he talks about it, he's basically saying, like, you are going to end sanctuary cities because I said so. And I'm just like, Jeff Sessions, when you talk about that, when he talks about that, he's very strong.
Well,
the woman, Christian, I'm sorry.
The thing that's incredible about that, the thing that makes it so important is, and I admitted it up front, I was a one-trick pony when it came to Trump, because I placed all of my cards on the damn voting table when I said, I don't give a crap about anything else unless Donald Trump is able to install conservative jurists in the Supreme Court, because that's where all this shit ends up, and it's going to end up.
Do you remember during the election, you and Sean and who else was there? And you guys were giving me such a hard time. And I said, no, Trump is going to win, and he's going to do a great job. And y'all were like, no, Carrie, get out of here.
Oh, not me.
You off the show.
No,
you didn't.
That wasn't me.
Show, but I think you were kind of riding me a little hard on that. And I do remember that when you said that was the thing that was concerning to you. And so I said, no, he's going to do a great job, just like Steve Bannon's going to do a great job. And I'm right.
Well, you are right. And I don't mind being a one-trick pony. When I come back next week...
No, you do great things. What?
When I come back next week, I'm not going to be here on Thursday. When I come back next week, and I hope I'll be able to come back on Tuesday, I want to read an article about how the Republicans are saying that, still and all, you can't, Trump is so evil and wicked. All right, he's doing some good things. All right, he did this. All right, he did 81 other things. But still, he's evil and wicked. to the point where I'm saying,
it's so funny.
I am getting so tired. So tired.
It's ridiculous.
I've never been so tired.
I just laugh at them.
I know.
Laughter is good therapy, and so it gives us something good to laugh at. They're absolutely ridiculous. And sometimes I grow very impatient with people who have just started following politics within the last, 5 years even. And you look at them, it's like, what is the complexity of your understanding here? How can you be so shallow to not get that, I'm thinking these things. How can you not understand these things that are going on with Trump and many Republicans? I've always had a problem with the establishment Republicans for many years, and they don't understand the complexities of what Trump is doing. There are times when he does these things, and I'm just like, oh, God, please don't do that. Please stop. You have to. He is going to do things his own way.
Well,
and
that's very true. There's two more stories that I'd like to talk to before we get to the story of the night. One of them was you wrote an article which said FEMA okayed alert, questions mount on missile alert snafu, and the history of mismanagement in the Hawaii EMA. Mm-hmm. So what did you discover about this? Because as far as everyone else knows, it's a guy that made a mistake and he pushed a button and, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. That's all we know.
And so in that article, what I did was, and here's another tip for any citizen journalist wannabes out there. So what I did was I went, and Neil McCabe actually taught me this. He wrote at Breitbart and for OAN, and he's very professional, and he's been a wonderful teacher and mentor to me, and he taught me this little trick. And so I used it on this article. I went and I found what the local media was saying. And so I searched on Twitter, as Twitter is an excellent tool, and I looked for who was writing things in Hawaii. And because they're, local media, they know more than I do. And he had written, I think his name was Nick, and he had written an article about the mismanagement at the EMS. This was kind of his topic. So I just took a deep dive into his articles, and I found that. And then on Twitter, I found a number of places where people were talking about, they were showing like they had used their phone to record what they were watching on TV, where the guy was saying it was a drill, and then he was saying it's not a drill. So I'm just like, what is the problem here with the EMS? The EMS then sent out a tweet saying that there was a press conference on the missile attack. And it's like, why do you not know that you didn't have a missile attack? Why are you having a press conference and a press release for a missile attack that you didn't have? So that had a lot of questions, like, was it scheduled? Was it a drill? Was it a FEMA drill? Because, they do all those weird FEMA drills. I did the citizen training for FEMA drills, and I found out a lot about what they were doing, and they're weirdos. But so I wrote the article, and then I'm searching, and I found out there's a press release, and it's at the top of the article, where it goes to the timeline, and it says that the Hawaii EMS contacted FEMA and got authorization to send out the alert.
Really?
That's in that press release at the top of that article. If you open that,
stop.
Stop
just for a minute. Stop just for a minute, folks. Listen to what Carrie is saying. Think of what she's saying. There's a story behind the story that the rest of the American media maggots don't give a fuck about. And they weren't interested. They are so lazy and corrupt. They were not even sufficiently interested, Fox News included, of course, to go and find the originating information from Hawaii and do an actual investigation instead of parroting everything else. How does this happen? How has journalism sunk to such depths? You're the damn journalist now. None of these other people are journalists.
No, we can all do it.
Disappointing
That's
this
the thing.
is.
And that was, just for a moment, if I could just go on, that's what Andrew Breitbart was talking about. And that's Breitbart, by the way, Steve Bannon, instrumental in Breitbart. So that's what they were talking about, is that we're the media. We can do these things. We do not need to rely upon CNN and MSNBC. And we all need to be doing this. And it's so simple. If I can do it, because, I put the sexy in dyslexia. I can do it. Anybody can do this, right?
Well, that's some funny shot.
Yeah. So, and if I can do it, we can all do it. We all have phones. We can get on our social media and just start writing articles. If I can write an article, and I've had a little bit of training, and I'm always happy to help other people. But that's it. I mean, why didn't they know how to do that? That was as simple as getting on Twitter. I sent the guy an email. I asked him if I could interview him. We can all do that. So, yeah, we can. Just a little bit of investigating. And so, anyway, there's there's a press release that says that they contacted FEMA. So that led me onto a number of questions. If I had some more time and a little bit more resources, I would contact some of the people at FEMA and try to figure out who okayed that. Those are 2 Trump nominees in FEMA, I believe. I started to look into it, and I thought, is there something political going on here? So I don't know. But it's not the story we're getting.
No, it's nothing like the story we're getting. It's damn near criminal. Can you imagine what would happen to the people of Hawaii if all of a sudden they discovered, and it came out, and maybe some people in Hawaii know this, and they've purposely decided to sit on it in the rest of the 48, the contiguous 48, that the government was doing nothing but screwing with the citizenry of the entire state of Hawaii? Are you kidding me?
Now, and that between you, me, and the lamppost would not be the first time that FEMA has messed with the heads of American citizens for a political purpose. I'm just saying. We all can go do some digging and find out that there's a whole other story. And I don't know if I'm going to follow that one anymore because there's so much to do.
Yeah, there's exactly so much other stuff. You have another article that I was originally planning to talk about with regard to Twitter and Project Veritas, and I don't really think we even have time for that. We got about 10 more minutes left before I'm going to have to clear out for the outro. And, I'll tell you what. If you can kind of encapsulate in the next 2 minutes what was going on with Twitter and privacy and James O'Keefe.
Okay, and so James O'Keefe is a genius. He is the Knight of Liberty, I call him.
He's a brave guy.
He's a brave guy. He's a smart guy. And again, he was mentored by Andrew Breitbart. We hear the same names over and over, the same people who are concerned with liberty and the issues that we're still concerned about. And so he has Project Veritas. He did some undercover videos. He did a series of 3 of them. 2 of them came out last week. The first one was on Twitter basically saying, we'll hand over anything we can on Trump to bust him. The second one was on shadow banning, which you and I have talked about a number of times, that they do downgrade and shadow ban people who are rednecks, shitty people. They said, by the way, there's a whole other thing with the shitty people, which came out last week. They called us shitty people, and then the next thing you know, there's this shitstorm. But anyway, so they do shadow ban us. They do marginalize us. They are censoring us. The third video that Project Veritas came out with is showing that that they will go into our private emails, into our direct messages, and that they're selling that information. They're mocking us. There's a guy there who says all of the pictures that people send to each other back and forth are on my server. I might give them to your wife someday. Just laughing, ha, ha, ha. And so what he's exposed is this massive censorship, abuse of trust. And there's a couple of antitrust lawsuits that have started. One of them is Milo Yiannopoulos, I think, and Roger Stone together. I believe that's an antitrust. There is one that is a First Amendment speech. That's Chuck Johnson, I think. And so there's a number of lawsuits against Twitter for what they have been doing. And so what they're trying to do is get Jack Dorsey to step down. And in my article, I think on the long article I wrote on O'Keefe, it talks about how Jack already had to step down from Disney. That was last week. And so there's a number of places where Project Veritas has forced change in policy, forced changes in companies. He's the one who got Acorn. He and his team, they shut Acorn down. And so now here's the question, what's going to happen to Twitter? But the question you and I talked about a while ago was shadow banning. And you said there are these weird things going on. Do you think I'm shadow banned? And I said yes, because it sounds like, right, you weren't getting messages. So we now know we're not crazy. We, meaning Trump supporters, conservatives, are not crazy when we say my account is not acting right. There's a good chance that you could have.
Let me suggest this to you as well, that perhaps some people haven't considered. I don't know if you have, but I definitely have, considering my background. You have to be 13 years old to get on Twitter. What do 13-year-olds do? They sext back and forth. What is Twitter then? Twitter is nothing more than a digital pimp. And because they said Twitter individuals go in and look at your private messages and all your sects, all your videos, all your photographs, and they have a team of humans that go and look through this. And you know for a fact that they have to have seen
there's another good lawsuit against them.
images taken from underage kids regarding child abuse. If you don't think that, you don't think that doesn't come through, you'd be sadly mistaken. And if you don't think they're watching they're watching it because they admitted it. They admitted it.
So they admitted it. So he busted them on a number of things. And if you go, he's got a book that's coming out, American Bravado. I think it came out the other day, where he talks about all the different cases. I don't think it has this Twitter thing. But if you go to his timeline on Twitter, he talks about it. All the videos are there. He's a great guy to follow. He's just a smart guy.
Yeah, definitely.
And nice. And he's all about citizen journalism. So he tries to encourage other people to do some of the things that he does, not the undercover stuff so much. I did a little bit of that last year. It was actually a year ago in D.C. That's not anything that people want to do if they're not prepared for how psycho the left is. So
psycho. Oh, my God,
I even scared my own self. I scared my own self, and I had to come home from D.C. at the inauguration. I went to the inauguration, did some undercover stuff, and came home, and I'm like, I'm scared. I scared my own self, and I know these people. They were scary.
Okay,
so,
7 minutes left. Okay. You're not going to escape unscathed. Although I know you throw better punches than I do, but I wrote an article entirely on this, and it asked one question.
I didn't get to read it.
One question. That's all I asked.
All right.
What the hell happened to Steve Bannon?
Oh, I did read that. Okay, no, I did read that. Okay, so did you watch what happened today, as a matter of fact? Listen, first of all, I have to say, I am Steve Bannon's fangirl. I've met him a couple of times.
And that's why I'm asking. You got it, because I don't know how you
I don't want anyone to think that I know him very well or anything. I just have admired his work for a long time, and I have met him a couple of times. I just like him. So, but I don't know anything on the inside. I'm not trying to misrepresent myself here. So, what happened today?
He went from a bomb-throwing conservative to a guy that just made me say, what the hell, dude? What were you thinking when you decided you were going to talk in front of this guy? And he wrote the book.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Do you know for sure that he said those things to that author?
Well, let me go down.
Wait a minute.
Let me go down here.
Because why are we supposed to believe that the book is a bunch of bunk, except for the things that Steve Bannon said, which are absolutely true? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. In August, Bannon said, the Trump presidency that we fought for and won is over. In private, Bannon told people he was disillusioned with Trump's shambolic governing style, which I thought you and I liked, and I thought Bannon did. Trump, in turn, sees Bannon as a self-promoter. The president views Steve as a guy who works for him. And there were some other things that he said. The few conversations, Steve and the president. Well, okay, then where is it that Steve Bannon has come out and said, proclaiming at the top of his lungs, everything that I said in that book is unmitigated bullshit?
Because he hasn't.
Hasn't.
Isn't this interesting? Wait a minute. But wait, hold on. He went in front of Mueller today.
This better be good. Yes, I know. Yep.
Mueller sent him in there as like, oh, you're going to turn on the president, right? Because you're mad at him, right? So look what he said. So you don't have to worry about me doing a sting like I did on Papadopoulos and like I did on Flynn and like I did on everybody else, like I did on Martha Stewart. I'm not going to sting you. You just come on in here and you're going to tell us everything, right? And Republicans and Democrats were united in anger against Bannon. When he got there, he goes, I'm not talking to you. I'm not saying anything. So if he was going to turn on the president, he had the perfect opportunity to today, and he didn't. And then the White House told him, we don't want you to say anything. And he said, I'm not saying anything. Executive privilege. And now there's a fight. You can't have executive privilege. You're a citizen. And Trey Gowdy got on television. He said, you cannot compel him to say anything. He might be the one. The whole thing might have been a setup.
That's way too Machiavellian for me. When it's like the old Hell's Angel. It's like the old Hell's Angels story. Two Hell's Angels can keep a secret when one is dead. And it's the same that was true for LAPD, which I knew the O.J. Simpson thing was bullshit because two LAPD cops can't keep a secret. They're going to leak.
Wow. So, I want to tell you something. I know two people who are in correspondence with Steve Bannon on things.
This better be good.
Who I thought were going to tell me, like, he told me, it's okay, don't worry. And they were like, I can't believe this is happening. It's just horrifying. And I'm like, okay, so for last week for a little while, I'm like, this can't possibly be. I even started to think, he wouldn't have said those things. What the heck is going on? So I'm going to say that I think that the entire thing, from what interviewing the FBI people and all these, everyone who's involved with Mueller says, don't talk to him. So I'm going to say, as crazy conspiracy kook that I am, I think the whole thing is set up. So he's going to be testify again on Thursday. We might not know more on Thursday.
Okay.
I know you think it's kooky. I could be right again, though. What if I'm right again? That would be 3 for 3.
Finally, we're going to have to go after this. We're going to have to wrap up. Finally, what I think is Steve Bannon had conscious choices to make, okay, and he made them. And he made statements that he has not refuted to this point. So,
well, then he would be a jerk
Bannon
if
did
he
this and Bannon did that. And like my boss has always evaluated me, or Steve Bannon or anybody else, what have you done for me lately? And I said, Steve Bannon, dude, you had choices, and you made them.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't that speak to the character of the man? And so then I say the character of the man is the guy who made the movie about Sarah Palin. This guy's been around for a long time doing a lot of stuff that people don't know about. He was instrumental at Breitbart. He was, Andrew Breitbart was awesome, but it was Steve Bannon who is the one who really got that thing moving along. Does that sound like the character? I mean, he's been out there slugging away for a long time. He's going to say all of those things. To me, just knowing that side of it makes me think, I think I believe in the hoax more.
Here's what I want you to do. You have a bit of homework, Carrie Baxter Donovan. When we wrap up in the show, you're going to have to give it about 20 minutes for YouTube to upload it, Facebook, whatnot. During this segment with you, when we're talking about Steve Bannon, I want you to go quick like a bunny to the visual portion, either on Facebook or YouTube, either one, and look at my face while I'm speaking to you. That's all I have to say.
I think you might have to buy me a whiskey later sometime. And you're going to have to make up to me that you made a face at me. Now, you can't do that.
Folks, we've been talking to Carrie Baxter Donovan, the East Coast political goddess. It's time to wrap up. So, Carrie, I got to have you back because there's going to be so much stuff going on. We didn't touch.
I love talking to you.
We didn't touch just a small molecule of all the crap that's going on in D.C. Much less the stuff that is soon to be uncovered. And folks...
Oh, my gosh, it's going to be crazy.
Oh, you bet it is.
I'm thinking of you, and I'm praying for you in all seriousness, and you're going to be back, and it's going to be better than ever. But I know you have something going on, and I just want you to know that I am thinking of you and praying for you.
I've had cancer a bunch of times, beaten it every time. I have melanoma.
And you're going to kick its butt.
I'm going in for surgery on Thursday. So I'm hoping to be back by next Tuesday. I'm just waiting to see. My back looks like the topographic map of a moon, to be honest. So anyway, that's the way it is. Carrie Baxter Donovan, thank you ever so kindly for being on the air with us tonight. You have a great night.
Thank you so much.
And,
you too. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you later. That was it. Folks, we're going to have to go. This, if nothing else, was an interesting show, was it not?
Monsieur has unlocked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzep, my website bloviatingzeppelin.net, my email bz@shrmedia.com. Promotional consideration by Pratt & Whitney Engines, Thrust You Can Trust, and also the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Say goodbye to the 747. The last 747 flight has been made. And also, thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle 1 refueling team, with whom I will be consorting, God willing, and the levee don't break in less than 1 hour. Thank you for listening live. Thanks to Dan Herron. Thanks to Carrie Baxter Donovan. Thanks to you listening in podcast live and being in the chat room. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.